Driving without insurance, or Section 143 of the Road Traffic Act 1988, is something that we see more and more cases involving. What tends to happen is that people will drive a vehicle perhaps because they've been asked to do so by an employer, or perhaps a member of their family has asked them to drive a vehicle, and they're uncertain about whether they're insured under their own policy. Policies need to be checked nowadays because in this ever competitive world of insurance, we find that particularly young drivers will be insured, but they'll have various clauses and exclusions on their policy, and they need to be very careful about just what they are entitled to drive. It's no longer the case that if you hold insurance, then you are entitled to drive anybody else's vehicle on third party. That tended to be an assumption that was made in the past, but is something that you absolutely cannot assume anymore. So check insurance policies before you drive a vehicle. The reason that the insurance charge is an important charge is because it carries 6 to 8 penalty points or a discretionary disqualification. And what we see in Glasgow more often than not is that the courts do tend to use their power to impose a discretionary disqualification. You might think that there's a degree of judicial scepticism on the bench, but there's certainly experience in Glasgow that many people, particularly young people, are driving without the benefit of insurance, and they're coming along to court with various excuses that are simply not accepted. So it's one to look out for. The type of case where you will have a defence is where an employer tells you to drive a vehicle or asks you to drive a vehicle. It's one of the few situations where you're entitled to assume that you are insured if your employer tells you to drive. So if you're asked to do an errand, or you work for a taxi company, or involved in any type of business where your employer tells you to drive a vehicle or asks you to drive a vehicle, you have a defence. There are other situations where you can defend this charge, and there's also something called special reasons, which means that if there's genuine reason on your part to believe that you are insured, and you can prove that you had genuine reasons, then it may be argued that special reasons exist and no penalty points should be imposed on your licence. So if special reasons can be demonstrated to the court, that's usually by way of a proof. So you normally have to give evidence to that effect. If you want any more information about insurance charges, or you've been charged in relation to Section 143 of the Road Traffic Act, get in touch. You can call us on 0800 612 9597. That's 0800 612 9597. Or go online, fill in the form, and we'll come back to you today with some more information and advice about what to do now.